Good morning. This is Mick Ruby, MEFC Realist TV. On this day recording, it's 4:30 a.m. on a Thursday, 25th of May. And yeah, I promise not to do another sales takeover podcast, as we want to just enjoy the football because we're playing Chelsea today. And it's the last second game of the season, and 1 point is needed to qualify for Champions League, which leads to how we can operate also in the transfer market. So one thing leads to another, people. So listen, I'm here because I think I laid down all the foundation on my latest podcast on Monday. You can see, backtrack and see where we actually call it a spade and said this is the last Ruby report that you will see regarding this, because it's been relentless. 10 months in the making, forensic investigations and all that stuff. So, but I basically said that all roads leads to Doha, and fair valid points. But I'm here because I want to talk about certain things today, which needs to be called out as well, of course. Before we go on, and smash a like on the video if you want. If you haven't subscribed, do so. Become part of this Realist community. Really what I want to talk to you today this morning, and this is a recorded, by the way, it's not live for you. It's 4:30 in the morning, up early. So basically, what is the current situation? That's what everyone has been DM me and wondering. There's still that PTSD, a little bit of a scareness that Ineos is still there lingering on, and that the glazers must delay things. Just not to worry, everything, all good will happen sooner or later. Definitely, what about the media prop? There's been some rumblings coming out saying that there's a problem with the Sheikh Jassim's fund verifications and the director's test, the fitness and test, and that is just smokescreen and mirrors, because that has already done in the third process before we entering here. So typical media strategy and tactics, media props and smokescreen. But I have to talk about Miguel Delaney, our dear friend Miguel Delaney. What is writing, how the flip-flop media is currently behaving, since they've been towing the line of Sir Jim Ratcliffe, and calling it state-washed, state-sponsored, blah blah blah, and all that jazz. So I'm just sick to my teeth to cover this. We also need to look at another thing that plays a major part in the development of this, and that's Qatar strategic investment in UK. We will dive into that as well. But also a lot of questions around the transfer markets. How can we sign players? We're linked to Kim Min-jae, and all of a sudden Neymar rumors coming out. So yeah, we will definitely look into that. But what I really want to do is to engage your thinking. Use your logic, common sense, and reasoning. And whatever I do here is I present you two sides of the stories, and at the end of the day, it is up to you how you want to interpret it, and leave a comments, of course. All good comments, all bad comments are welcome, but just keep it civilized, right? And finally, is the sales done? We see. I will take a little break before I prep the studio, and in the meantime, take a sip on your coffee as usual, or your morning brew of choice, tea, and let's do this. Let's get into these stories.
Has the Premier League ever been more challenging?
Right, well, I feel welcome. Dit is my home, and I want to achieve success. Okay?
All right, so in this podcast, I just want purely just focusing on the media side of it, because we covered everything. We flipped every stone, we flipped everything. We looked at the financial market, we looked at the bidding situation, the overall premium earner clauses, what's been going on, and we just basically coming down to the final announcement. But we have to look back a little bit in time to not to forget, but really, because people tend to forget stories. I never do. I keep track on everything, to be honest, right? But it's been treated like a transfer window, and it's been written by transfer journalists or football journalists. If you remember these dramatical headlines, like Sheikh Jassim dramatically preparing massive bid to end the Manchester United saga. XYZ. We all seen it, but we have to sort of recap it, because in this episode I want to do the real due diligence on certain journalists and really have a debate around that as well. We also seen explain in the previous podcast what shadow bidding is, and of course we know that Rain Group has been responsible for this since November, looking at strategical alternatives for the glazers. It's been a dire sopa where there was coming up with statements that we will be finished with all this by Q2 March. You know, we already surpassed that. So what's going on, people? What's going on? Well, there's 4 different phases, and shadow bidding, we already explained that it is a kind of a process where it's practiced by the Rainy Group, that you kind of like having an auction style where it's kind of a masquerade. You don't know who the other bidder is, but in this case, both bidders that's going toe to toe has gone public. So of course they know each other, but you will never know what the other bidder's bid is. And on the other hand, you know, the joker in this game is the Rain Group. Joe Revich is kind of driving this auction side with extortion, with a single purpose to overinflate that asset what it's really worth, right? So this is the overall architecture of the sales process as a recap, right? So where are we now? We are basically coming down to just waiting for, you know, who is going to take over Manchester United. That's it. Well, media and other things are reporting, slow sports news flip-flopping to say that we're waiting for a preferred bidder, right? According to my time and calculations in project management, the preferred bidder has already been passed. Actually, both have been run as an exclusive bidder. You know, it's just about outbidding each other, playing Texas Hold'em like a game of Monopoly. Whoever wins gets the club. Simple as that. That's very simple. I hope this is not going to be a long recording, because I want to go through this, right? We also seen, like, you know, tweets going back in last week that saying that sources close to Qataris believe that the remaining part of process could yet be the 11th bidder of, you know, Sheikh Jassim, and everyone, including Telegraph Ducker, is quoting the same. All it takes is that somebody reports something, and it's like a domino effect. So the Glazers still to reveal if they are selling the club, Sheikh Jassim or Sir Jim Ratcliffe. It leaves you a little bit of the limbo, and that's kind of the reasons why I'm kind of running this podcast, to provide you with the motion sickness pill. You know, be calm, good things will be happening. So everyone is kind of jumping on this story, like, you know, because why wouldn't they? You know, as if you are a sports journalist, it's the biggest scoop of the century. Manchester United is getting sold. We also covered about the you know, FFP rules and certain clubs protesting against Manchester United being bought up by a state-backed oil-rich country, yapping on the tree. Well, having no objection of talking about how Newcastle was bought up by oil money, state-backed, and Abu Dhabi buying City, yet Sheikh Jassim is not state-backed oil money. Hypocrisy, according to my opinion. Let me know what you think. So it's just for me, who's been following this in forensic way and speaking to a lot of people. It's been 10 months, like, you know, 1958, and people close to Qatar side, and, you know, from the club side as well. It's just all smelled a rat. You know, it's just been a smoke screen all the way. And even Jack Otway from the Daily Mail wrote the same. He smelled the death rat. I agree. And I said, this is something that I've been suspecting. And I've been diving, deep diving into this as well. But it has to come down to a certain point that we have to talk about Miguel Delaney. The time has come, Miguel. I know. Because we're living in a free press world where you have a freedom of expression, freedom of thought, freedom of speech, right? I get that. But we also live in a world where there's cancellation policy. You know, If you're a chief editor, a writer for Independent or for sports journalist, and you write out a piece and you cannot take constructive criticism, then we have a problem. Proper journalism is to present two sides of the story and have a debate. I simply responded back to your tweet to say, I'm interested to hear why you think so. Why don't you come to one of our spaces and let's have a discussion? What happened? Blocked. What happened to the most of the people within the fan base that was challenging this Liverpool so-called editor of chief? Blocked everyone, pretty much. I think that's a coward. Why are you hiding? Why are you not coming to our spaces to explain yourself, at least to redeem yourself and your dignity? Because rest assured, once this saga is finished, you'll be in the mud, mate. So your chance is still there, mate. Please reach out to us. Reach out to 1958. Reach out to myself. Reach out to anyone that's been troopers in this sales process, and glazers are full sale only. But let's dive into this, because I'm not that person that will throw the first stone, but you have thrown many pebbles and stones into the wrong area. So we have to talk. We have to have a debate. But I just want to go into, how Miguel is now swaying in certain ways. So this came out just earlier today, this morning, where he's basically towing the line because, hey, at the end of the day, like, you're writing for the Independent, you're gunning for a Pulitzer Prize, whatever you want to do. You want to break the biggest story of the century. Of course, we're talking about the sales of Manchester United, the biggest club in the world with the biggest fan base in the world. And here we go. The headline says, preferred bidder in Manchester United takeover could be named by the end of the week. All right. This is the headline by Miguel Delaney. It was written 19 hours ago, as clocking right now. And it says Sir Jim Ratcliffe and Sheikh Jassim are both in the running to purchase the club. Still towing the line that, of course, is exclusivity, and both are towing the line. Now, this is, of course, a headline, but, that's the interesting part. What I always find, I'm looking for a particular words to see what you are really angling towards, right? So if we continue reading the story here, it says the bidders for Manchester United are hopeful there will be an announcement regarding the preferred bidder by the close of domestic season, and potentially early as Friday this week. If you go back 2 weeks time in my podcast, this is something that I mentioned as well, that most likely this will be announced after the FA Cup. And why so? Because it's equally important that you don't disrupt this season and the players that already fatigue with this sales takeover news. And you want the players and the team to get Champions League and potentially win the FA Cup trophy. So why so? Because Champions League matters in terms of revenue for the new owners. It also matters in how you can recruit on the market with the FFP and everything else. We will dive into that later on. He continues to say, although it's already much later than expected, and it will bring some more clarity. Sources with knowledge of this situation are describing it as another milestone of constant milestones. Another milestone of constant milestones? Have you ever done project management, mate? I don't think so. You see, in project management, you do have milestones to achieve to another milestone. And according to my opinion, this is following the right track. It is a multi-billion-dollar deal. It takes time with all this due diligence, checklists, director test, fitness and test, submitting that, your shadow bidder, your shadow directors and board. So, checking the finances of the club, making sure that the earnout clauses that you agree in terms of buying out the premium prices is met. This takes time, people. Yeah. However, he comes to say that, again, there has been cautious optimism within Ineos bid due to the nature of the deal. However, cautious. You see how this wind of change is swaying all of a sudden? Because a week ago, everyone was saying that Sir Jim Ratcliffe is the preferred bidder. Everyone was going for Sir Jim Ratcliffe. Why was it so? And now it's cautious. That means that Ineos has been blown out of the water. Simple as that, right? Another thing is that, you know, the lawyer of Ineos has been in direct contact, keeping the process with Rain Group, haggling back and forward in terms of the structure of the deal. I presented this in the last few podcasts to say that, you know, what Sir Jim Ratcliffe has done has been very, very smart as a businessman. He basically gone in to say, I will give you 3 billion now, as we know. That gives you about 51%. Nothing else. I want to have full control, but I give you 18% to stay as a minority. Yeah. But those 18%, I will buy you out within 3 years. And you tell me what that deal and structure will look like. This has caused the confusion and the delay, according to my opinion as well. But we will dive into who he has to blame here. Which still hasn't the club priced out higher than that. He keeps saying that, you know, his Qatar's bid is not higher than Sir Jim. How would you know if you haven't seen it? Well, Sheikh Jassim's fronted bid did come with a twist fourth offer. It did not come with a fourth offer. We talked about this. It's simply the marginal adjustments of the second bid. Second bid. Qatari felt that they have submitted what's been asked for. So all along this due diligence checklist is all about discussing the earnout clause with the remaining shares. 69% to the glazers, 31 for the remaining of the shareholders. And after the supposed deadline for final bids has passed, and it was significantly improved on the third bid offer, it did not blow Sir Jim Ratcliffe out of the water. I repeat, it did not blow Sir Jim Ratcliffe out of the water. How do you know? How does any of these journalists know? Do they sit there as a receiving end to receive the bids and compare so they can write that it didn't blow or did not blow? The only thing that you're doing here is blowing the trumpet. Excuse my language. To use the phrase so commonly uttered in the process, it's also seen that some sources an acknowledgement that the third offer was surprisingly low. Undermining. That's what you're doing here. Undermining. Excuse me. The reporting, according to Delaney, did lead to a situation where there was some frustration with Qatar bid and damaged the relations due to one figure described as attempt to brief the way to a better bid than actually put in. Yes, according to that is the only thing that you are correct. According to my sources in Qatar, they were very frustrated with Rainy Group for delaying the process, so they decided to go directly surpassing Rain Group and talk directly to the glazers. And that's been documented. There's some reports out there as well. So it's not just me waffling about it. Last week's offer, however, it is least considered to be competitive against Ratcliffe's. It is at least considered to be less competitive than Ratcliffe's. Issues like tension and damaged relationships are not seen as particularly influential, though, as this will come down to the hard numbers. Yes, Miguel Delaney. Bingo, bingo, bingo. Finally, some sense. Glazonomics, as we know it, Miguel, it all comes down to the Benjamins, what the Glazers will receive, right? So how come you know all this? Well, we will get to that twist later on, Miguel. That is nevertheless still dependent on the perspective of the numbers, he says. Both the bidders has been arguing about how the offers can be cleaner. What are we talking about? Sports washing? Greenwashing? I mean, as far as I'm concerned, Ineos is doing greenwashing with the fracking, And the other one you're accusing are doing what? Sports washing. Absolutely nonsense. What is cleaner? Well, let me explain what cleaner is, since he doesn't explain what cleaner is. A cleaner deal is a less complicated deal. As deluded before, what Ineos has done is to confuse the Rain Group and the Glazers by offering them, the curveball back. Yeah, we give you 3 billion now and 18% to stay on. We pay you out with the premium within 3 years. It's basically, you tell us how the structure is going to look like. Is that cleaner? It's not cleaner. It's not offering to clear off the debt. It's offering you to take 3 billion now, and we as Ineos will take on more credit rolls and bankrolling. And how about money for the infrastructure? So that's not cleaner. Well, on the other hand, as we've been comparing apples to apples, comparing the both bids, the most cleanest bid is actually Sheikh Jassim and the 9-2 Holding Foundation, because it's offering everything that we need. Clear the debt, invest in the infrastructure, invest in the women's team, back the manager, give us fund for the transfer, just make us great, right? While Ratcliffe went into, invest in the community, for the Manchester community. Well, excuse me, if you are a Manchester United fan, you should know. You should know not to go to be in bed with the glazes. Then you're just full of shit, to be honest. Sorry, YouTube algorithm. It's just me. It's just me. Oh my God. What am I reading? I'm having enough. On the other hand, obeyed from different sides, Ineos have been pointing to how theirs will not involve lengthy process. That's a blatant lie. This process will take forever and ever and ever. I will get to that throughout the owners and directors test. This is where it was leaked out as well to smear that Sir, that Jassim's bid was, they failed the directors test. There was no proof of funds. Well, in matter of fact, in stage 3, this has already been done. What are you talking about? This is down to the announcement. This is down to everything is agreed. What do you think? Like, you haven't done everything, like submitted your director's test prior? You haven't talked to the UK government? Of course you have. I'll come to that later. Due to the fact there's no complications about the state ownership. Oh my God. State ownership. Here we go, Miguel. I see your true colors shining through. Rainbow colors. Excuse me. Meanwhile, the Jassim bid insists that the bid is private, although, here comes the punchline, the widespread belief is that it's still ultimately backed by Qatar. Do you see what I'm coming at, people? Do you see what I'm coming at? Miguel, buddy, I don't know you personally. I don't wish you any harm, my friend, but please, for the love of God, please come and have a debate with us. Talk to us, 1958. Talk to us in the spaces. Send me an invite. Unblock me. Unblock everyone that you ever blocked, because you have a career after this as well. If this doesn't go your way, my friend, your career and credibility, have you thought about that, mate? I'm just saying, as a fellow journalist in this industry that actually do some forensic investigation, if you know what I mean, right? So I just feel sorry that we have to read all this garbage out there, to be honest, and calling a spade. What is another thing, what you're calling about state-backed and all that stuff, and how it's really matters. How can it be so, my friends? Well, it doesn't take much just to go back in time, and how geopolitics do play into it. How did Qatar persuade everyone to get a World Cup, right? If Qatar wants something, they will get it. Neither you like it or not. you know, and you can throw your LGBTQ and all that sports washing. This goes out of the window if governments are involved. Clearly goes back to Boris Johnson 1 year ago, exactly 1 year ago, by Reuters, saying, let me minimize this so you can actually see what this is saying. Oh no, I cannot do this. Yeah, UK says Qatar to set invest 10 billion pounds in Britain. 10 billion pounds. That was the Emir 1 year ago striking a deal with Boris Johnson that are strategic investments, man. Strategical investments into UK. That's 10 billion pounds. Wow. And you telling me that doesn't matter? Of course it does. Of course it does. It has to do with LNG gas. It has to do with Qatar investing, you know, to build a project that creates jobs. And what happens next? I tell you what happens next, right? What happens next is I just need to take off this overlay so you can see. This is what happens next, people. Right? PM meeting with the Emir of Qatar. That was in 5th of May. And this is by press release by gov.uk. Same meeting, different prime minister. This time is Rishi Sunak, right? Follow up. He came for the king's correlation. No, he didn't. He came speak directly to Rishi Sunak, right? And rest assured, he spoke about Manchester United, you know. And we've seen stranger things, how governments can influence in sports. So why wouldn't it be so, right? Just putting it out there. Honest to God. Now, where's my frame? Where's my frame? I'm getting just warmed up here. Now, I want to talk about another thing regarding the transfer market. And, you know, we've seen like Neymar has been linked. Every Tom, Dick, and Harry has been linked. We've seen that we have almost a done deal with Kim Min-jae, and people saying, how can we do that? We are broke. We are broke. You see, I covered this long time ago, even when January window was there, right? We had credit facilities to use, but Glazers didn't want to, right? Because they were selling the club. Yeah, they didn't want to. However, the deeper the process has been involved, right? We come deeper in the sales process with the bidders. You know, Bank of America has been there with Barclays Bank to say, you know what? Here's what's going to happen, right? You guys focusing on the takeover, we pledge yourself to any of your bidders. You know, don't worry. We will offer you like, you know, 500,000. 500 million, sorry, not thousand. I'm sleeping. It's early morning, guys. You have to excuse me. 500 million each. And this is coming out from also, you know, El País as well. They are quite credible. Like, you know, they have 80 million followers, like, you know, 57. And this guy, what's his name? Diego Torresto, he's got about 54.1 Ks. So it's a credible outlets. But this is something that I've been also towing and got credible information from the club as well to say that there is funds. But I didn't know about the 500 credit. But what does it mean? Does it mean there's 500 for transfers? No, it's not, people. You have to read this tweet carefully. See, Sheikh Jassim's envoys agreed to approve 500 credit the Glazers have signed with Bank of America and with intent allocate to hiring in 2023. Now, keywords here is allocate to hiring. Let me explain to you from a HR perspective and strategical business and recruitment. You see, come November, October, end of physical year, you always get together and you do your manpower planning, budgeting and manpower planning. There you kind of understand what kind of hires you need for next year and what budgets are allocated for those hires. Simply, you cannot go over that because every hiring manager is accountable. So what they're saying here is they allocated 500 million for the entire hires for Manchester, right? At Carrington, at Mayfair, all that, right? And part of that is also the transfer because players are also staff. So I hope this helps because that debunks everything. So 100 million, 200 million can be used for the transfer market. But you also have to go and sell players. And Manchester United will offload a lot of players this season, according to credible sources and reports that I received. So there's what we have to debunk here. And we've gone 30 minutes into this stream. And I'm waking up. Anyway, I'm all warmed up. So what do you say? What's your thoughts and feelings, right? I've said my pieces, and people still, according to Adam here as well on Twitter, says he's confident that Sheikh Jassim will win. He is confident. And so does everyone else. Because at the end of the day, the media has been out of themselves. They've been absolutely clowns, according to my opinion. Other than Ben Jacobs and Mike Keegan, they've been quite decent. They haven't taken any sides because they've been practicing proper journalism. Ben Jacobs has not gone out to be sensational. He's just been, educating people in the sales process, in what he's been believing, right? And he's also lived in Qatar for 5-6 years. From my understanding, never spoken to Ben, but been interested to hear what he has to say further, right? And Ben Jacobs has also been connected to Qatar as well, but he's also been trying to get both sides of the story. So that's what I always say, you have to, filter the news. Don't just read the headlines. At the end of the day, don't get the media spin get to you. Mental health is not good. And sure, this has caused a lot of mental health issue and anxieties. Hence why I'm sitting and talking to you. So where does it lead to? Well, they always go back in timeline, people. Why did Joel and Avram go to Qatar in the first place, right? Surely not to watch the World Cup. They had talks within investors themselves. They hired Rain Group to be the pimps. Oh no, you know what I mean when I'm saying pimps, to prop up everything. Once they got the mingling with the sheikhs and the royalties to sort of sell the proposition, to get them fired up, because they knew that there is the money. Nobody will pay, what we want, which is $7 billion US, when everyone knows that the club evaluation total is $4.5 billion according to Forbes evaluation. Now, how are you going to manage to do this? Yes, you hire Joe Revich and Ineos. You go find Ineos as a prop. You go and fish around the, oil-rich countries to find bidders and suitors, and bingo, you got yourself a Qatar on the hook, a big shark. Wicked, happy days, right? Since then, these two clowns has been going back and forward in Qatar, talking, right? Ava, Riva. I'm just saying, the media today is just like, everything is there documented, but certain people just forget, right? It's like we have short memory spans, like, because we only read headlines, and today's news is tomorrow's fish and chips paper. Right. So where is everyone leading to? Everyone profits. Money, money, money. Money makes the world go round, unfortunately. Everyone profits here. Like, the lawyers, the solicitors, Rain Group, Rothschild's Bank, Bank of America, who owns the credit line and offerings to bankroll in terms of the transfer market. It has to be paid back sooner or later, but it's not a problem because whoever comes in now will have a fantastic squad, Hopefully get Champions League. When this will be announced, I have no idea. According to the media, they're saying it's like a transfer market. It's going to be a done deal on Friday. I don't think so. There's something rumbling because everyone is reporting that something's going to happen on Friday. They've been also saying about soft deadlines and deadlines here and there. No, I keep my powder dry. I say, look, at the end of the day, all roads, according to my opinion, leads to Doha. I think it is simply done and dusted by Sheikh Jassim. I think that what media is saying is the reverse. It's like reverse sanction. You know what I mean? If we talk reverse sanctions, you know what I mean? Where the collective West wants to sanction like China and Russia, if we may say so. I'm not allowed to say so for you for the algorithm, but we saw the reverse sanction, that they prospered instead, and it was the reverse story. You might have to cut this out, Mick. I'm not sure if it's allowed to say so, but I'm just using an example. So it's very, very common practice in media to toe a line. And once you do that, you never reverse, you never retract, you're just doubling down. And these guys are doubling down to their own credibility. At the end of the day, it's a shambles. Why is nobody doing proper journalism? Why? Ask yourself the question, because at the end of the day, they sell a lot of magazines, and if you jump into any of these publications, you get spammed by advertisements, and you have to sign up to read articles by certain publications without mentioning the names. But yet again, for clear transparency, all of you journalists that's been so-called in the know, involved with this, sports writing journalist, taking a crash course in sales processes, please, once this is finished, let's have a proper debate. That's what we're here for. We call a spade, you know. Not only at this channel as an independent publisher do we look at the both sides of the stories, which we fairly have done, assess the bids, but we also have been watching you. Anyway, guys, where this does this lead to can only go one way, and that's full sale. If you haven't watched my previous podcast, if you're new to this channel, please, before you comment, please go ahead and watch previous podcast, because there's a lot of details that I'm leaving. This is just me going at the media, going at a certain person that I mentioned that I do have a problem with, that I know that most of Manchester United have a problem with. You know, freedom of speech is one thing, cancellation is what I don't stand for. I don't stand for elitism. I don't. And that's why we are called MUFC Realist TV. This has been Mick Ruby. Please like and subscribe, and be nice to each other on socials. Crikey. Thank you so much for stopping by and watching MUFC Realist TV. Don't forget to like and subscribe, and follow us on the socials.